Good morning, everyone. Let's get right into it. There is more news than I can keep up with. So we might do a bit of jumping around today. Sorry about that. I'm also a bit under the weather, so my voice might sound a little weird. Sound like a radio DJ or something. I don't know. Anyways, so come down here. Uh, at least 12 F-22 fighter jets of the U.S. Army have arrived at a stopover at the Lakenheath base in Great Britain on the way from Alaska to the Middle East as preparation for an Iranian attack. Notice all of the narrative is that there's going to be an Iranian attack and not that Israel will be attacking first or that the U.S. will be attacking first. So that is the narrative for now. We'll have to see what happens. Will Iran actually attack first, or will we attack first because we think they're going to attack? Reports in a Hezbollah affiliated newspaper that UN organizations in Lebanon, including UNIFIL, have begun evacuating officials' families. A couple things on this. This is just a picture, could be from any time, any place, anywhere. And this is just a statement that's been plugged in by someone. So I don't know for sure on this. A lot of this is just reports of. We don't have, in modern times we get the quote, sources familiar with the matter, and nobody ever wants to disclose who their sources are. And here we have reports of this happening. So we'll just have to wait and see, something to be aware of. Again, why is this happening slowly over the past week and a half or so, instead of there is a threat, there is a risk, get out now? That's not what we see happening. We see this slow transition of personnel, aircraft, various entities, organizations rotating out of the theater of potential operation. That to me signals that there isn't actually an imminent threat from Iran, because if there was, this would be a sudden, rapid event that's occurring, not taking a week and a half for folks to get out. This was a funny post I saw, and I wanted to go ahead and share it. I think you'll get a laugh out of it as well. It says, channels from Iranian opposition mock Iran. The attack has begun. Let's go ahead and take a watch. Get your last for the day. So there you have it. The Iranian attack apparently has begun. So pardon me for my previous analysis. This is supposedly of the Ben Gurion Airport. It says Ben Gurion Airport is completely empty today after most international airlines canceled their flights to and from Israel. And I don't recall for certain, but I think nearly all of Israel's food and logistics comes in through land or air. So that's another thing to consider. Remember, they didn't have a port in Israel. The U.S. tried to go plug one in there, a massive failure from our stance, from the world stance. I don't think they get much stuff through ships. I think it all comes through land or air. So now we see passenger planes stopping, how much longer until cargo planes as well? And that if we see stuff boiling over in many areas around Israel, what about if things get choked off via land? Very interesting thought there. Something to consider. On the same topic, there are growing signs of Russia's involvement in helping the Iranian Axis military, not just diplomatically. So again, we have growing signs, but nobody's willing to disclose what those signs are, similar to sources familiar with the matter. We're just supposed to take it and accept it. This seems like narrative building because no one's willing to share the signs. Because Russia went and met with Iran, what about all the people that the U.S. meets with? What about all the people that China meets with? What about all the people that Britain meets with, that Australia meets with, that Germany meets with, right? So, yeah, we need more definition here. Nobody's willing to reveal anything these days of importance. Everybody just wants to do narrative building and narrative deconstruction. The U.S. intends to request clarification from Kiev regarding the events in the Kursk region. If that is true, that the U.S. isn't familiar with this, that would be interesting to note. That A, did Ukraine organize and conduct this operation without any sharing of intel with the U.S.? If so, why? When historically that hasn't been the norm. The U.S. has been very tied to what Ukraine plans and then executes on. There's so many rabbit holes you could go down just from this one statement, if it is true. Iranian-backed groups are bringing reinforcements and artillery systems to the Mayadin sector to assist the Syrian tribal forces, Arab Tribal Army, the ATA, it looks like, in its offensive against U.S.-backed SDF, pro-Iranian groups, and the tribal forces haven't always been in agreement, with numerous clashes, but also joint operations between the two in the past. There's more on this above. Sorry, some of this is out of order, so we will get to Syria and what's going on there. In between there, it looks like I've sent some posts to my saved messages regarding Russia and Ukraine. We need to analyze some stuff about Putin and his body language and these statements that are made. So that'll be coming up here in a minute. So if we read down, Putin, we call on the authorities of other Russian regions to join in providing assistance to the Kursk region. Ukraine, if we mobilize all people aged 18 and over, we will be able to fight until 2033. Head of Ukrainian military intelligence. So these two statements are interesting. We have Putin saying, we call on authorities of other regions to join in providing assistance to the Kursk region. What? Shouldn't that be a direction, not a call upon? I don't know. I don't know enough about their government and how it's set up, but that is not what I would expect a leader of a unified system to be stating. On Ukraine's point here, if we mobilize all people aged 18 and over, if you understand the quote unquote eighth wonder of the world, compounding interest, if you undercut your society by sending the highest output as far as physical capacity people off to war and sacrificing them, as well as you've taken some of the people that have the most knowledge, skills, and abilities, the older generation, and already sent them off to war and killed them, you are setting up your entire society for a collapse. You no longer have the strong backs of the young men needed to do the hard labor at a young age, and you no longer have the older generations to pass on the knowledge, skills, and abilities to that generation so that they grow into the next generation that passes on that knowledge to the next generation. So you end up with a compounding interest, but in a negative terms. This is what I was talking about yesterday in my video, that could massive hedge funds and bankers pay for a war to happen in order to free up the land so they can buy it very cheap and then import their own armies of non-native persons to work it. Just a thought. Next comment down, Russia will either have to stop all of this or declare a large-scale mobilization if the war drags on until summer of 2025. And that's the statement I want to use when analyzing Putin's body language up above. Russia will either have to stop all of this or declare a large-scale mobilization. So let's go ahead and I have some videos above of Putin's body language. Let's go ahead and take a watch and a listen. Where is it? I know I sent them to myself. Here we go. So I'll be pausing, muting back and forth throughout this, so bear with me.
Прошу доложить ситуацию, которая складывается в Курской области по линии ваших ведомств. Начальник генерального штаба находится сейчас на...
All right, so first there, do you see the posture to the left of Putin? The gentleman sitting up straight, attentive, elbows are on the table, hands together. He's making a equilateral triangle there, nice and easy, right? If you look at the gentleman across from this guy here, you'll see slumped over, broken triangle, kind of hunched, rolled shoulders. This guy sitting up a little bit more straight, at least a together triangle, equilateral triangle there. Apologies, I'm not the best with geometry terminology. You see the posture is a lot better. Putin isn't terrible right here. He is leaning forward quite a bit. He does have a very obtuse triangle. It's not very equilateral. And so this could be a posture, we need to look at more body language. This could be a posture of extreme fatigue and stress and fatigue. I don't know who these individuals are, just to clarify. I'm sure someone does. If you do, please let me know in the comments. I'm just analyzing body language right now.
Одном из пунктов оперативного управления, да, уже это видеосвязь.
Okay. Historically, when watching Putin videos, you'll see him much more relaxed than he is in this video. Watch his head movements, watch his hand movements, the jerkiness of it, the rapidity of it, the rapidity. Look at his eyes, right? Because he looks very, very tired, like he just spent the whole night awake, or day, whatever he is, whatever time it is. It looks like he just spent the past 24 hours pretty much completely awake. Let's go ahead and keep watching. Oops.
А затем Сергей Кужегедович расскажет о результатах своей поездки в Иран и в Азербайджан. Пожалуйста, Валерий Алексеевич.
All right, so now this gentleman's going to talk for a bit. Let's watch Putin's language as this gentleman's talking, right? I've only watched about half this video, but I'll share some more commentary as I go through it.
Верховный главнокомандующий.
Oh my goodness.
Минут 6 августа 5 часов 30 минут.
All right, so you see that he's biting his bottom lip, licking it, looking around, not at ease, not relaxed, looking down, tilted off to one side.
6 августа подразделение вооруженных сил
He's playing with stuff on the table. He's anxious, right? He has some anxiety going on.
численностью до
He's
1
adjusting
тысячи человек
himself, adjusting stuff.
перешли в наступление с целью захвата участка территории
He's leaning
Судженского
off to
района
one
Курской
side. He
области.
is fatigued right now.
Действиями
He's
подразделений
adjusting
прикрытия
papers.
государственной
He's
границы
muting, unmuting.
совместно с пограничниками и подразделениями усиления, ударами авиации, ракетных войск и
Again, he's
огнем
adjusting
артиллерии,
papers.
продвижение противника вглубь территории на Курском направлении остановлено.
Obviously, he's already
В
heard all
настоящее
this,
время
but you can see it. He
подразделения
is
группировки «Север»
stressed. He is
совместно с
tired.
пограничными органами
He is trying to hold it
России
together right now.
продолжает уничтожать
That sigh right there, that's a sigh of not enough CO2. He's not breathing. He's not getting good deep breaths in and out, holding it at the top and the bottom. He is stressed right now. So his body just did a quick inhale, exhale, and that's something that your body does when it doesn't have enough CO2. It's trying to get the air out and get you back into a CO2 state to get more CO2 back into you.
в районах, непосредственно примыкающих к российско-украинской границе. Потери противника составили 315 человек, в том числе не менее.
I didn't see that before. Let's go ahead and take a look at those two characters. I don't know who they are. So very common to be stoic in Russian society. In fact, if you smile in a lot of in Russia without something funny happening, it's like there's a saying, but people think you're like mad, like you're insane to be smiling without something funny and significantly funny to have just been said. And so this is kind of the facial expressions I would expect on some of these characters, but man, these guys, especially this guy, he looks tired as all get out right now. This guy also, he's hunched over. I mean, these men are up there in their age, so I can't fault them too much for that, but they both look just tired and worn out from this conflict, and probably from staying up all night because of the stuff that happened.
315 человек, в том числе не менее 100 убитыми и 215 человек ранеными. Уничтожено 54 единицы.
You can even see actually some of the pink around his eyes and the red around his eyes, some of that pink and red. When the kidneys are fatigued, you'll get more puffiness and redness around the eyes, right? And so he's probably not hydrating well enough. His diet's probably suffering quite a bit, stressed out. You can see just even the lowness um, in his eyelids compared to where they usually are when looking at footage of him. Much brighter, more lively, more astute look to it. This is, I mean, drooping there. This guy is tired and worn out.
Единицы бронированной техники, в том числе 7 танков. Операция будет завершена разгромом противника и выходом...
And distracted. You see, when you're fatigued, when you don't have enough sleep, you're easily distracted. Almost like it feels like ADHD, right? You see him off looking at the side here. I'm sure he's already been briefed on this, so to him it's just repeating stuff, and it's more putting on the show for the cameras now at this point. But still, he's aware of needing to maintain this stuff. But as you get tired and fatigued, you forget to maintain that bearing during these kind of events because you're just fatigued. You're out of it.
Разгромом противника и выходом на государственную границу. Доклад закончен.
Anyways, that is my analysis of his body language there. Right or wrong, that's what I'm seeing. If you see something else or anything in addition to that, please let me know in the comment section. On that topic, if you could leave comments down below of stuff you guys want to see, of your analysis, of things going on that I'm not covering, it would really help me hone in on topics. You know, over here on the left, you can see a lot of the channels that I look at for intel gathering, and as well as using X and other YouTube channels when events happen to try to spot significant events going on. But if you guys could let me know, that would be immensely helpful. In addition to that, if you find this information helpful and you think that other people out there will as well, and it is valuable to know and be ahead of this stuff, one way you can help grow the audience is to like this and subscribe and share. And I know a lot of channels share that, but seriously, if you find value in something and you want to share that value with others and share that awareness, that's the way to do it these days. With that, let's go ahead and continue on. So Chinese Navy spokesman confirms China carried out combat patrol at Scarborough Shoal, a disputed territory with the Philippines. Right above that, we have the Philippines, Australia, Canada, and the United States will hold joint naval exercises in the South China Sea tomorrow. So again, we see another tension point between opposing forces forming around the world. Someone mentioned yesterday a theory that Israel could be a massive distraction for the U.S. because many of the U.S. Enemies know that the U.S. feels very obligated to come to Israel's defense in the case of a war. And so if that's the case, which we see the U.S. sending a huge amount of assets over there, could that distract enough of the U.S. or congregate enough of the U.S.'s assets into one space to allow for other events to transpire around the world? So essentially, you know, like you ever heard that story of, you know, if you want to rob a bank, have someone wait until someone robs a convenience store or something across town, or have someone go ahead and rob it and distract all the cops and then rob the bank on the other side of town, right? It's nothing different than that. That's the theory that's being proposed here, is that someone's trying to distract the U.S. with stuff going on in Israel in order to get all the quote-unquote police over there. And it's an interesting theory. It could be happening. Let's see. Tribal forces reach the U.S.-run Al Omar oil field refinery. Again, the U.S., the Middle East is having a lot of boiling events occurring, and you have to wonder about the timing of all this stuff occurring while we have tensions in Southeast Asia, and we have the war in Ukraine and Russia happening. We have Venezuela crumbling. We have the UK and Ireland going through troubles right now. France collapsing. Much of Europe going through tensions regarding immigration. You have much of Africa crumbling right now, and Western countries pulling out of those areas, leaving a power vacuum. So there's a lot of stuff happening simultaneously right now, and it makes me wonder. Let's see. In Diban, in the eastern countryside of Deir ez-Zor, warplanes belonging to the occupying U.S. are targeting tribal forces. Let's go ahead and take a watch. There we go. Someone just let out about 1,000 rounds. Arab tribal fighters capture a technical, this truck, from the SDF in the eastern Syrian town of Tayana. I'm seeing a lot of stuff going on with Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, Iraq right now. And Iran backing a lot of one side, and the U.S. And Israel, of course, on the other side, and some smaller forces in between. U.S. helicopters are reported over Diban, which was recently captured by Syrian tribal forces. Here's a statement I found very intriguing from former Israeli Prime Minister. The U.S. will get a rerun of 9/11 if it doesn't fight Israel's wars with Iran and its allies, according to former Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett. With a lot of the stuff surrounding 9/11, makes me wonder, if you show me the incentive, I will show you the outcome. If the incentive is the U.S. will come to our aid and fight our wars, if we do this, well, the outcome will probably be this. I don't know, something to think about. There's a lot of skepticism around the story we've been told about this over the years. I don't know heads or tails, what's truth and false. All I know is there's some very questionable things, and then we see a statement like this. Not the most reassuring thing to be saying, especially in the context, if you show me the incentive, I will show you the outcome. A circulating video reportedly of one of the camps being established in Jordan under the supervision of Jordanian government to receive Palestinian refugees. So there's this big story that the real goal with the Palestinian refugees is to actually send them off to Jordan. And here we see a bunch of camps being set up. This happened after the Jordanian foreign minister said that Israel expelling Palestinians into Jordan is unacceptable for them, and they won't accept more refugees. Nasrallah has warned yesterday of an Israeli plan to expel Palestinians from West Bank into Jordan. In one of his previous speeches, he also warned from expelling Gazans into Egypt, West Bank Palestinians into Jordan, and Israel Arabs into Lebanon. So in that context, this is a very interesting video. What are these for? Are they for this? Why Jordan? Right? Why pick this place over that place for Palestinian refugees? I am always curious about the reason why for different events. There's some reason why people don't do this stuff just out of randomness. So here's a truck of 48 Ukrainians that were trying to escape. And obviously, you'll see from the footage, they were captured. I'm seeing a lot of these videos all over Telegram and X of people trying to escape and being caught by Ukrainian forces. So in game theory, or applying game theory to this, I'm guessing most of these people are then taken pretty much straight into combat. Because if you take them back to their homes, if you take them into prisons or whatever, they're going to be plotting escape, plotting getting away while they have time. So if you remove the time factor and plunge them straight into fight or flight, or pretty much fight, in this case, then they don't have time to think about their flight and contemplate and create a plan for flight. They are forced to fight. So applying game theory, that's what I'm thinking is probably happening to these people. I have absolutely no evidence to prove that, just applying a theory. More stuff about the attack in Kursk. I didn't know that's what this video was from yesterday when I shared it in my video, but apparently it's being tied to this action in the Kursk region. All right, up to the UK. I was concerned. I saw this list circulating 4, 5, 6 days ago, calling for demonstrations to happen at these locations at a certain time. That to me seemed like a big honeypot operation going on to try to capture people. We also saw, while this was circulating, the government saying that it was going to be targeting and rounding up people participating in demonstrations, and targeting and rounding up people on social media who are instigating them and inspiring others to participate in demonstrations. And so while this was circulating, a huge concern, there's definitely people on all these Telegram channels monitoring for information, doing intelligence gathering. And so if the average Joe and Jane have access to this information, you better recognize that the governments have access to this information. They know what's planning, if not themselves, the ones putting it out there and planning it. And so the title here says, over the past day, United Kingdom police started to prepare for major violence in several cities this coming Wednesday, which is today, with anti-immigration protests planned outside of migrant hotels and processing centers across the country. This seems like controlled opposition to me. It seems like setting up an event to control your opposition and hopefully capture them is what I'm thinking. So I'm not saying hopefully, like I hope that happens. I'm saying hopefully from the standpoint of the government, they're hoping to do that. And so I wouldn't be participating in anything that's this overtly planned and passed around X and Telegram so widely. It seems very suspicious. This was more body language stuff from Putin. That actually might have been the same video. Yeah. Back in Syria, another picture of Syrian tribal forces raising their flag over Busayra. More videos of the Syrian tribal forces and the attacks they're launching. Again, supposedly from today. You always have to take that with a grain of salt, that anybody can take a video from any time and say it's from today. It might be from a year ago. I don't have the intel history to say yay or nay to this. I basically have to watch it, report it, take it with a grain of salt, see what happens for confirmation. And let's see, this is from later yesterday. I was finding some more stuff. So this guy's actually saying exactly what I was thinking with that list. So let's go ahead and take a listen. The list from UK is what I'm talking about.
I just want to quickly do a part 2 from the video last night that I did regarding what's going on in the UK, in Southport, Hartlepool, Downing Street. There's things happening everywhere on this land at the moment. However, I just wanted to let you know, in plain and simple terms, we're walking straight into a trap. Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister of this country, Jimmy Savile's best mate, went on TV yesterday, told the nation that this is wrong, you're attacking everything, the mosques and everything. Not that we have a problem with the mosques being here, glitched out there. I would rather have 100 places of worship than 100 bars. Now, I'm sorry to people that fucking love the drink. However, it's time to put down the stupid shit. It's all about the children, their future. And it's looking dangerous because we're about to walk into a trap. The government want us to kick off. They want us to riot against the police. They want to call in martial law. And once they've called in martial law, guess what happens then?
There we go. And that's what I've been looking at this entire time, because we've seen it happen in multiple spots around the world. Why would the government let this stuff get so far out of hand between the natives and the non-natives, and even importing the problem itself and knowing what's going to happen? I mean, this doesn't take a massive amount of PhDs sitting around in a room saying, if you do this, this will happen. It was very obvious this was happening. Why? And also, why wouldn't the government intervene when there's clearly an issue with a lot of these non-natives and violent actions, and then letting them out of prison while also being very harsh on the native folks for simply speaking stuff versus the non-natives who are physically harming and deleting people, right? So psychologically speaking, if this is happening and you're seen as a supporter for this bad stuff, that the people who you should be protecting are going to do something about it themselves against the non-natives and against the government folks who are protecting the non-natives doing this bad stuff. Like, that's an easy psychological Psych 180 introduction to psychology kind of course stuff to look at and say, yeah, that makes sense. That's what's going to happen. So if some Joe Schmo on the internet with basic education in psychology can say, that makes sense that these inputs would lead to those outputs, do you think the government, with a lot smarter people than average Joe Schmo, knows about this and can manufacture this? It sounds a lot like a theory of sorts, but it's a pretty obvious input-output mathematical equation to me. And I think people are waking up to it. The question is, what do you do about it? And so everybody's talking about this stuff being a trap that enables them to go into authoritarian, totalitarian control and a lot of other measures. But here's the thing. They're going to march towards that one way or the other. And the question is, do you get there by just allowing it to happen, or do you get there by trying to stop it from happening? That's basically the two paths. And a potential of the second one is stuff doesn't get there because people intervened. I'm not calling for it. I'm not supporting it. I'm just saying those are the specific decision paths that people are making in their heads right now. We can finish this off. I don't think there's much else that gets added in here.
Law, guess what happens then? They bring in the digital ID. Yes, you're from this country, you're identified, off you go, everything's peaceful now. And that's when the digital currency comes in place. Go Google it, the banks are shutting down left, right and centre, but I'm not going to go too deep into it. I don't want to get this video removed, so it is for entertainment purposes, only TikTok. So guys, remember, we're walking into a trap. We need to unite, no matter what religion, no matter what skin colour, no matter where you're from, it's time to unite.
Some very interesting commentaries there. Let's see. Here's a video supposedly of Ukrainian warplanes targeting a Russian military base in Morozovsk. Man, they've got a lot of consonants and vowels in there. Massive explosions and destruction of Russian warplanes on the airport grounds. There has been some videos coming out of multiple Su-30, I think it's Su-34, 35s, blown up on the ground and damaged flight line. Let's see. This was interesting. Looks like a spotting of a lot more bots online. The whole dead internet theory seems to be coming more about to where 90% plus of the internet's just going to be bots here very, very soon. So it looks like more evidence of that happening. In Northern Ireland, we have water cannons and armor reportedly spotted in Belfast, 10 p.m. local time. 2 water cannons and 4 armored Land Rovers just came into Belfast from Carrick down the motorway not 15 minutes ago, getting ready for it to kick off. So apparently things may have calmed slightly in the UK for now, but they seem to be growing in Ireland, specifically in Northern Ireland. So this is Woodvale, Belfast. An elderly woman was attacked by a migrant yesterday, so the locals are now attacking non-native households. Let's go ahead and take a watch here.
Нет. utter fucking disgrace.
So I don't have a horse in this race, so it's easy for me to see both sides of the story. Actually, there's three sides of the story. You have the non-natives who came here. There's four sides. There's the non-natives that came here. You have the natives who are, when I say here, I mean wherever they're at. You have the natives, the locals there, some of which who are upset. That's another perspective and want to do something about it, and some who are doing something about it. And then you have the locals who are not upset about it and think that anybody who is doing something about it is a disgrace. And then you have the government who seems to be a puppet master in all of this. And so you have those four perspectives right there. And in some videos, you will see three of those perspectives, the non-native and the two native ones interacting together. And then in separate videos, you will see a fourth perspective, the government, and its perspective on the situation while watching this stuff happen. Here is a man, apparently, in Manchester, chasing after some folks with a chainsaw. That is not a chainsaw. That is a hedge trimmer. Let's see. Here's apparently some graffiti in Newtown Abbey. Move them out, or we, I don't know if I can say that, we incinerate them out. And then you have some, let's see, clear signs there. Again, I don't know what I can read or not read yet on YouTube. We'll see. So here's an interesting news article to be aware of based on what we were talking about earlier. Armchair, quote unquote, thug is first to be convicted for Facebook posts trying to stir up racial hatred during riots. Family man, 28, faces jail after urging mob to smash the fuck out of migrant hotel while sat at home with broken heel, right? So we have people being convicted for speaking about things or potentially inciting physical outcomes. So the more, right, if you look at a data trend, you have an upper limit and a lower limit, and all those data points should fall, for the most part, within a trend channel. And once you see a data point pop outside of it, that could just be an outlier. But if you start seeing a whole bunch of data points popping outside of that trend channel, you would want to analyze if something has changed and if the trend is changing. And I'm starting to see a lot more posts about people getting in trouble for saying stuff online. And so then you have to ask, is the trend changing, shifting more towards that? And if it is, what's the input that has changed to cause that output to change, that trend to change? And I think it is the times we are in and where the government is trying to steer things. Belfast, this is in response to certain religion gang chasing non-certain religion gangs around the city. Worst possible place on the planet to do that. Let's see how it pans out. So the folks in Belfast have had enough and are saying no. Falls Road, Belfast, Catholic youth have begun to attack Arab-owned shops. Kids need to be careful out there. You know, this is the thought why when I sent this to my saved messages, these kids are going and doing this stuff. The more they keep doing that, right, trend, the closer you're going to grow towards having an outlier to where one of these adults does something to a kid, right, wrong, or indifferent, does something to a kid that sparks off a massive reaction. Right? So it's just something to consider when you see videos like this. It's probably just a matter of time and not too long before something catastrophic happens here and ignites the area. In the U.S., Nassau County, New York, passes a bill banning face masks in public. Oh, how the turntables have turned. And so now there's public mask activists being dragged out. As you can see here, here's one of the activists that's very pro-mask. So it's interesting how our world has turned around from everybody must wear a mask to now it's unlawful to wear a mask in as short of time as 4 years. I think this is in preparation for what the U.S. sees coming its way as people seek to wear masks more to hide their identity and not for health reasons. Also in the U.S., Tim Walz, Kamala Harris's VP. Here's some more information on him. Signed a bill redefining the term sexual orientation to include P-files, if you know what I mean. Yep. This was just an interesting picture. I want to look more into this actually on my just some spare time. The old term "all roads lead to Rome." It's very interesting. If this is even if this is true, this would be fascinating. So I really want to look into this. I do know much of Italy as I've been there and spent a lot of time there, but I had no idea about all this stuff going on and how it traced back if this is the roads that head out of there. So that's going to be a personal study of mine. Probably not something I'm going to share on here, but if you're interested as well, maybe something to look into. Pastime. All right. Let's see. Here's an interesting article. The dollar's days as a universal reserve currency are numbered. Here is an interesting point about that, though. The U.S. being the reserve currency is actually hurting the average Joe and Jane. The very nature, the problem with holding the reserve currency is that eventually it's the thing that destroys you. Here's how to think of it. In order to be the reserve currency of the world, that means we have to export more dollars than we import of other people's goods or dollars, right? So we have to keep exporting. That means we have to keep printing, and that means we have to run trade deficits with the rest of the world. So in order to do that, we have to destroy our manufacturing and our production here in the US so that we're buying the goods and services from around the world. Because we need to export our dollars to be the world's reserve currency, you see. So we have to buy their stuff. We have to conduct a trade deficit with them. And so the very nature of holding the reserve currency is eventually the cyclical thing that comes back, the snake eating its tail, is the thing that comes back to destroy the country that holds the reserve currency. So the best thing that could happen to the US regarding the reserve currency is that it loses reserve currency status. It would be in the US's best benefit for alternative trade currencies to take over. That's just how the plumbing works, and the different pieces of the puzzle work as far as reserve currency. It's simply a math equation. If you need to export more dollars than you import of other people's stuff, that means you have to buy their stuff to get those dollars out there and be able to have those reserve currencies in those countries. Let's see. NATO is dragging Moldova into the abyss. One of the F-16 fighter jets delivered to Ukraine was spotted yesterday, August 4th, over Odessa. So Moldova is not a NATO country, while many of the other countries around Ukraine are. So they're using, from what this report is stating and some other sources have been saying, they're using Moldova as a parking lot for F-16s, and potentially even a launch spot of F-16s. And if that happened, that could be a very serious issue. Let's see, the coordinator of the Nikolaev resistance, Sergei Lebedev, reported that it flew towards Moldova. Military experts have pointed out that the F-16 requires very well-prepared runways, which sharply narrows the number of Ukrainian airfields ready to receive them. It's therefore highly likely that the airfields located outside Ukraine will also be used. But if the F-16 fighter jets took off from, let's say, Romania to strike Russia, that would expose a NATO country to Russian retaliation, and due to Article 5, the solution could rapidly escalate. The choice fell on Moldova, a constitutionally neutral country that is being sacrificed by its puppet president, Maia Sandu, as yet another proxy in the NATO war against Russia. I found this interesting too. So in Bangladesh, a whole bunch of people looted the government residency of the ousted prime minister, but then they came back to return it all later. It's just fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. I'm very curious about their society now and why. Yeah, there's just a lot of questions I have now. It says people looted the government residency of the ousted prime minister are returning their items, saying they feel guilty, and it was simply done due to high emotions. And everyone's just like, okay, no harm, no foul, bring it back. And they're putting it all in the street in front of the residency. Yeah, interesting. A report in the Wall Street Journal, the U.S. military transferred, from what I've heard, about a dozen F-18 fighter jets from the aircraft carrier Theodore Roosevelt to one of the bases in the region, probably Qatar, as part of the preparation to intercept the expected attack from Iran. We also saw there were several KC-135 tankers in Qatar, so that would make sense. Send up your gas stations, have different refueling points going around the region, so and then launch your aircraft from a land-based aircraft carrier, essentially Qatar. Have them go up, conduct sorties, and then come back. Refueling points. Let's see. Apparently this was from Great Britain a few hours last night, and I said a few hours ago. So apparently there was a bit more going on than I thought. Let's go ahead and take a watch. So I'm not certain, but it does look like this. It looks like this could be a burnt down police vehicle, but it could just be maybe some sort of delivery van, work van. Not sure, since all the paint's been removed and I don't see an antenna on top like that one. So I'm not sure, but it does seem likely based on some of the footage I've seen with Molotov cocktails and stuff being thrown at police vehicles that this could be a police vehicle. And that was supposed to be, that was Great Britain, or Britain, I'm guessing. And this is in Northern Ireland. We're going to take a watch of this as well.
Force is about to be used against violent individuals. If you do not stop, impact rounds will be fired.
So if you heard that, it's calls to disperse essentially, and if you don't disperse, impact rounds will be used. Someone laid out earlier, or yesterday I came across it, a set of steps that's kind of just generally repeated as governments escalate their force against protests, and impact rounds so came right before obviously real rounds, and usually after water cannons. And we did see that the water cannons were on their way to Belfast with those 4 armored vehicles, and then we also, or I think they were Range Rovers or something like that. And then also we now have escalated to impact rounds. And so in theory, if this person is correct, I think they're going off of patterns and historical evidence of riot control, it would be impact rounds and then live ammunition, perhaps next. I don't know. We'll have to stay tuned. Hopefully that's not what happens.
Ooh, cross some photos. Sorry, guys.
And there you go. Trash can fire, police blockade. Interesting note if this is true. Pakistan announces its intention to supply its deadliest weapons to Iran. So now we have perhaps more fuel to the fire for an escalation in the Middle East. Just what the U.S. has wanted since 2003. And here we go. Speaker Johnson, Mike Johnson, confirms if Iran attacks Israel, the U.S. will declare war on Iran. So I've seen a lot of statements that say if Iran attacks, war, full-scale war is going to happen. Remember that Gulf of Tonkin incident, right? How many times in history have we seen very suspicious activities happen that led to us, the U.S., getting involved in a war? Just saying. We're seeing a transfer of a lot of assets from the U.S., from Britain, from other nations, over to the Middle East right now. As of course, yesterday I said I don't usually track a lot of aircraft stuff because there's so much of it. But of course, naturally, as soon as I say that, there's a whole bunch of aircraft stuff happening. So we've got a lot of air traffic heading towards the Middle East right now to build up parts replacements for aircraft, to transfer different weaponry, to transfer indirect labor activities, not necessarily just direct activities. What else do we have going on here? Russian army put out a propaganda video that shows kind of an ecumenical, everybody coexist, religion kind of aspect to supporting the Russian army. It was a very interesting sign of the times. And I think that's about it. UK rioters to be dealt with by the end of the week. That was the Prime Minister Starmer. More than 400 people were arrested at the demonstrations, according to the Crown Prosecution Service. Bangladeshi protesters set fire to a 5-star international hotel, killing 24 people and injuring more than 50 others. Bengali protesters liberated a number of items from Parliament that they stormed. Having a bit of an issue with my internet loading here, so this might be a sign to move on for the day. Anyways, folks, that's about all I've got for this report. I'll be watching for significant events, signs of potential things to transpire. Until next time, stay exponentially aware.